Welcome to the Man to Man podcast. We're here, Mike Makowski, Dennis Lemire, episode 7 or so.
Come on now, I was in double digits.
All right. Last week we released the one that we originally recorded. Like that was OG. So that was before we had the cool TV up on the fireplace. I mean, you've done a lot in the old man cave here to make it look good, but that was the first one that we recorded with Dr. B and all that. So that was last week, so go back and watch that. It's got real cool story. We had a couple people that have said to us already that they really enjoyed that episode. So it was cool to finally be able to release that after months of kind of sitting on it. And then, and it just kind of made sense to, the time was right. So it was good. It was a good one. We just got back from our basic event. So, one of the things is that we are heavily connected to the Wild at Heart ministry in terms of, obviously we run their events. So the retreats that we do are based on the material that Wild at Heart puts out. So they have 2 right now that we're doing for men, which is basic and then becoming a king. And so basic, this was our second one that we've done ourselves, that we've run ourselves both in January, so a year apart. And so we're just getting off of that. It was cool, 20 some guys up there. We just take off, we go out in the woods. I mean, there's really not a whole lot to the camp. I mean, it's January in Wisconsin, right? It's over in Wisconsin, this camp. So it's not like you can do a whole lot. It's flipping cold outside. There's 3 feet of snow everywhere.
There's a lot of snow.
It's
had a great bonfire though down on the point. We put pictures of that on Facebook. We had a really good bonfire. We got new hats made. So if you've been to a basic in Minnesota or been to any one of those, we got some new hats available. But yeah, it's just really just like Dennis said, it's not like a bunch of tons of things planned. It's like you go there and you go, okay, God, here we go.
Yeah, it's actually the opposite of a bunch of things planned. Right. They specifically have very little planned. I mean, it's 10 sessions over the course of you're there for 3 days total, but 4 different Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah. But there's big groups of time where, you're just kind of left to either hang out with the other guys that are there or, what I think is one of the coolest things about, which sort of caught me off guard the first time, because I don't know that I know that I've never been to a retreat that did this, right? Where you have time set aside specifically to go to God with questions about what you just learned and listen for answers. I mean, it's intense. It is there's been times where I've been sitting there, and then I go with these questions and I'm just like, I'm not hearing a whole lot. And there's other times where I'm just like, I can't stop writing. It's just one thing after another. We were joking, and I the picture that I have from one of the guys on a dry erase board, I mean, he wrote a lot. It filled up. It was one of those big dry erase boards, and he filled up the whole thing. It was in like 10 font on the whole thing. Yeah, and he filled up the whole. I mean, he was downloading information.
Everything that was you were saying,
on that one. Yeah. I mean, and that's just kind of how this is. And sometimes it'll be one session, you'll just get a ton of stuff and a ton of information. And then you sit through the next one and you're like, that was good, but I'm not really
there's
hearing
one song or that hits. But what I love about what John and the Eldridge team always says is, you need to take the time for you.
Right.
If you need to sleep, go to sleep. Mm-hmm. If you need to take a walk, take a walk. If you need to go exercise. If you need, and that's what I think is so great about the weekend is there's no necessarily, the only expectation that we put on anybody is not even the meals, but we suggest they be there because they can't pay for the meals and the sessions.
Right.
Outside of that, you do what's right for your heart. So.
And people take full advantage of that. I mean, there's guys who will disappear for naps. There's, there's plenty of conversation to be had. There's guys that are reading books. I mean, you see a little bit of everything at this event.
Or there's the real men who play boot hockey in the parking lot of the camp. Just saying.
At 10 degrees outside or whatever.
I'm still having a hard time walking.
Yeah, my body hurts. So you think it was 10 degrees outside?
My lungs.
You're running around in a parking lot.
My lungs hurt so bad.
I mean, there are things that we come up, people. You put a bunch of guys, they'll come up with something to do. So literally, it was, there was 3 feet of snow. It was cold, and you guys made a hockey rink and played boot hockey in the parking lot. So I mean, guys will find something to do for sure. There was one guy that was snowshoeing and stuff, and another guy that was just out hiking through the snow. He was like, it's a good exercise. I'm like, yeah, it's exhausting to walk through that much snow. So it was, guys will find something to do is the cool part, and again, this, like you said, it's just permission to do what you need to do. So
and then on the other side, the spiritual side of it, I mean, there are guys that the great thing about leading these events, or I should say hosting these events, is you and I once again were stomp balling. I mean, I got hit hard in the wound session again, and so I mean, I don't think we're ever finished, but it is really nice to be praying over all the guys, but then watch how it affects them.
Right.
See grown men that are just busted and broken before God, and then the after effect of the joy that they have, the wanting to share what God did, and so we're always continually asking guys to send us testimonies of what God did in their life, and yeah, it's just an incredible event. John and his team does a great job. That's just all to it. So
yeah, and so it's been good for us. This last, like I said, this was really good. It was fun to do. The big question, and we've talked about this hundreds of times, right? And they talk about it in the event itself. Even John does a whole session about, if I were you, this is what I would do, right? And so it's obviously a big part of this, but we hear it constantly, right? And it's this question of like, so now what do I do? Right? Now what do I do next? What do I do? How do I take this and do something with it? And so I just think that that's an interesting question that we can explore here is what do you do? I mean, you have this great event. I mean, we make it's technology free, so everybody shuts their cell phones off for 4 days. You're in the woods, so you're not surrounded by much of anything, right? I mean, if the zombie apocalypse happens, you want it to be on this weekend because you're completely away from everything, right? You'd never know. Right. It's great food. I mean, everything is set up for this, and so you're in this like almost perfect environment with this well curated message and video series that's amazing to watch. And like you said, every time I watch it, I get something new out of it. Right. Which is when something like that happens on like the 5th or 6th time you've been through it. It's pretty good stuff, right? So you're in this like environment that's created for you to have this experience, but that doesn't last. That doesn't go on forever. That has to end. At some point, you have to pack up all your gear, you have to put it in the truck, and you have to drive away. Right. So what do you do? Like, what is the answer to how you what's the next steps? I mean, how do you take that out of there and do something with that?
I mean, I think there's 2 things that just came to my mind. What I heard this weekend was guys would say, well, it's time to go back to the real world.
Right.
And then there were guys that have been to a men's event before and it didn't last. Mm-hmm. It seemed like once I got back into the real world, it just seemed like everything that happened to me just kind of fell to the wayside, stuff like this. And, they said once life hit them in the face and all those kind of statements. But you said something to me yesterday, and I'm putting you on the spot because the way you said it was really good about the change that happens. How did you say that yesterday?
Yeah, it's, what the thought came to my mind was that it's your world isn't changing. Right. Your life is still what it was. Right. When you left on Thursday, whatever you left, you're coming back to. Dirty dishes in the sink, garbage you didn't take out, whatever. Sunday afternoon, you're coming back to it. It's you that changed.
Right.
The you that you're inserting back into that world is different.
Right.
It's not the same person.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the realization of that is hard, but at the same time, the realization of that is like, okay, I'm coming back a different person, right? And so that's why when it says, okay, now it's time to go back in the real world, I think what it should be is it's time to bring back what's real in me to my world. What I received, what God did. Now it's time for me to invade the world that I live in with what God did within me. Because I think sometimes we prepare ourselves, right away we tend to start immediately when you get your phone back, you're answering emails. Immediately you got that one crabby boss or that one crabby coworker that texted you, and now you got to respond to that, and so immediately we're stepping back into the world that we left, and we're not giving time for what we've learned to penetrate the world that we're going back to. And so, in Colossians 3, if just so you know, read Colossians 3, the entire chapter, okay? Because this will give you a process of things of how do you maintain, how do you keep with the change that's been in you? How can that change be reflective to your world and start to change the world around you? But the one scripture I want to start out with is Colossians 3:1. It says, since you have been raised to a new life with Christ, set your sights on the realities of heaven. What does that mean? That means you need to set your sights on the realities of what God did this weekend. The changes he made, the things that you've heard, that's the realities, that's the real world that we're supposed to be living out of, is heaven, not this world. We're supposed to be living out of the world that we cannot see. And so it says, set your sights on these things. Don't be quick to lose sight of what God did on the weekend.
Right. Because it's super easy, right? It almost, to me, in myself, it almost produces this like panic feeling.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what happened while I was gone? What am I going to have to deal with? Who's mad at me? Who's happy with me? Right? It's this panic feeling that I have of re-entry.
Right.
Oh my gosh, what is this going to be like? And you immediately start to focus on that because that's what's right in front of you.
Right.
And in the process, you're losing sight of what happened because you're addressing what's right in front of you, which is your re-entry into.
And so, that's difficult to do, but that's one of the things I always say to men is if you make it a challenge, you're more apt to respond to a challenge than you are to respond to anything else. So if you say, I'm bringing what God did to me to this world that I live in, instead of, oh my gosh, gotta go back to the real world. I mean, there's a whole different sense of direction when you go, no, I'm going to bring back what God gave me to change the world around me. And so it says what? You got to keep your sights on the realities of heaven, where Christ sits in the place of honor at God's right hand. And it says, think about the things of heaven, not the things of the earth. Think about those things. Continually put that in your process. Okay, you're right. Guess what? You had a weekend that was filled with God. Guess who knows that? The enemy.
Right.
Oh, he knows exactly the wound that you were healed from. He knows exactly the agreements that you took authority over. So what do you think he's going to try to do when you get home? He's going to try to bring them all back.
It's almost immediate.
Oh, it's for sure immediate. It's for sure immediate. The majority of men's weekends that I've done where guys have had struggles with, past relationships with women, and they decide to live their life a clean life, and they decide to live their life a pure life, and they're not going to go back to that lifestyle. I tell them 100%, I said, it's a guarantee that a girlfriend from 10 years ago is going to text you.
Right.
And it happens, Denny, 9 times out of 10. I get a call within 2 hours of being home that this old girlfriend said, hey, I'm in town. I'd like to get together and catch up. So we have to understand that when we're going back, the things that we have, that God is changing us, got to be on the forefront of what we set our sights on while we go back. Not what am I getting back into? No, what am I bringing to my life?
And that feeling of did this really happen? Is almost what comes up. What I've heard and what I felt, frankly, over and over again is this thought of was this just me? Did I just manufacture all of this inside of me? Did I just make myself feel better, right? Did I do all of this inside myself? And now I'm faced with the reality of who I really am.
Right. Oh, that's very good. Yeah. Yeah, that's very good. And I think John says that also in the videos. He says there's the enemy who entices you and convinces you to do the wrong thing, and then he condemns you for doing it.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So be prepared for that. I mean, you got to be prepared that everything that God installed in you, the enemy's going to try to take out of you again. I mean, that's just an automatic. That's something that we should know when you leave the event, that you got to straddle up and get ready for a battle. Because what did we say earlier? That we live in a love story, right? That's set in a world at war, and that's the truth. And so and so Christ thought, and it says, think about the things of heaven, not the things of earth. And this is what I love about this scripture. It says, for you died to this life, and we talked about that when it comes to love and that kind of thing. And your real life, the one that we're supposed to be focusing on, the real life, is hidden in Christ, in God, hidden with Christ in God. That's where we have to keep our focus, right? And so how do we do
what we're trying to find? Like that's what you go to these weekends to find, right? It says it's hidden. Your real life is hidden.
Right.
Not it's unattainable or it's not possible or you don't have what it takes to live that life. It's just hidden.
Right.
Hidden things can be found.
Right.
Hidden things can be brought to light, right? And so you're going to do this, right? Encounter process. We talked about that before we started recording, and it's something that they say all the time in this series, is that you have an encounter and then you start the process.
All right,
so the encounter is when you find that hidden life in God, and you're going, okay, I see now.
Right.
I don't see all the answers, but I see the path that I should be on. That's the encounter.
That's the encounter.
The process is what you do next.
Oh yeah, and what you encounter really is what you see, and who you begin to see who you are, right? And when you think of like one of the questions that I was asked by many different people, okay, when it says that your life is hidden in Christ, why would God hide? Right. Why would God hide your life from you? And I always think about, have you ever played hide and go seek with your kids?
It's fun, yeah.
I mean, the kid is like, does he like to hide? Oh yeah. But most of the time he likes to seek, man. Because why? Because when he finds you, there's something about, oh my gosh, I found my dad, or you know what I mean? Right. And that's when you think about it being hidden, it's not like God's hiding them from us because of a punishment or because, no, he's hiding things from us because he wants us to seek after him. He wants us to seek out who he is. He wants us to live a lifestyle of seeking him.
It's not hidden like keeping it from you. It's hidden like
you're gonna find
treasure to find.
You're gonna find me.
Right.
And what does a dad do? He doesn't hide in a tough spot. Like he hides under a table.
Right.
That you can see under it very easy. Why? Because I believe that's what God does. It's not like he's hiding in a spot that's going to take 14 hours of prayer, 13 hours of stating something, and then no, he hides in spots where you're going to find him, right? Because he likes to be found. And so, but still, when it comes to that focus, how do we do this? And so, one of the things that I'd like to ask you, Danny, is like, how did you do it for the weekend? I mean, how did you do it for the weekend? What are some things that you had to do?
We already talked about, right? You go out to the woods. Yeah. I mean, we purposely make these events someplace that people have to kind of journey to, right? Because you're getting out of your comfort zone. You're leaving behind your surroundings that you're comfortable with and going someplace where, for many of these guys, they've never been before.
Right.
And it's different and it's weird and it's in the middle of nowhere, right? And
so one of the ways that you can continue, one of the ways that you can keep from losing what God did to you is taking the time away.
Right.
I don't know what it can be for you, but maybe it's a half an hour on a Saturday. But if you don't take those moments to get away, if just like you did for the weekend, you took 4 days, which is a big challenge for a lot of people to take that many days off, but that obviously shows you a process of how you can hear clearly from the Lord is by taking time away. So schedule that in your week.
Right.
Half an hour here where you get away from people, if that's taking a walk in a park or taking a drive with no music playing, none of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's one way. Exactly. So apply that to your life. Like you said, this was beginning of a journey. It wasn't the end result. It's something that God changes you for so that you can take to your journey. And so if that worked for the weekend, right, it's okay. That's one getting away.
It's not like this some sort of magical thing. I mean,
it's very simple. Matter of fact,
how many times do we? I mean, people talk about that in your regular life all the time. Taking time for yourself, right? Self-care is a big thing, right? And that's all this is. It's taking time to take care of yourself. Right. Doing it intentionally is obviously the way that you make it happen.
Right. So you got to plan it into your week.
Right. Yep.
Right. Yep. So that's one way. What else do we have to do?
Yeah. Obviously, we talked about the technology. Yeah. We're very strict. We're strict. I mean, we are. It's almost uncomfortable. I think I said it's uncomfortable for me to be as strict as we are with people on technology, but we are. We're very strict with this is technology free. You're disconnecting for this time, and there's some guys that are like, yeah, okay, buddy, hell yeah, I'll not put my phone down, right? Yeah. But there's other people who come out of it even, there's some that are like, I'll happily put my phone down.
Well, that one
dude was like, take my phone. Nope, I don't want it, right? I don't need it. I don't want it. And, but there's some guys that are just embrace the opportunity to think that you have to embrace an opportunity to put your phone down. I mean, holy crap, man.
And the guys this last weekend, just so you know that are watching us, they were very lucky because Denny you were way more gracious when it came to this. I wanted them all to turn in the moment they showed up. You didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Because just having the access is tempting enough to go back on it.
Sure.
But of course we had to be more gracious and we gave people the choice on that, and hopefully the guys did it. But yeah.
So I heard many guys afterwards were like, I'm so glad to put my phone down.
Oh yeah.
So one of the things that I've started doing out of this, funny enough, is when I'm around my kids. So again, I have two boys, 13 and 16 right now. And when they come up and start talking to me, I put my phone.
Oh yeah.
Almost. I shouldn't say almost. It doesn't matter what I'm doing.
Right.
If they come up to talk to me, I put my phone down.
Yeah.
Because going to these weekends, realizing how much effort and time you put into having that phone there. If you have your phone up and your 13-year-old is talking to you, you're not paying attention.
And what if you were talking to your 13-year-old and they kept looking at their phone?
Right.
I think you'd be like, put the phone down.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So I've that ever since that, actually might have been the second one I went to, but I'm slow. I've started doing that with the boys because it changes the way that you interact with other people when you just put that down.
Oh yeah.
And the guys, it's funny because you'll watch the first night at camp, the interaction between the guys is like kind of awkward. It's what you would expect when you put a bunch of guys in a little room, right? You've got some guys that are talking and everybody's showing the personality they want you to see. So some guys are telling jokes and way more boisterous. Other guys are reserved,
putting on the poser.
Yeah, and kind of in the I'm gonna check everything out. But by the end, I mean,
by the second day,
yeah, true. By Friday night, yeah.
I mean, literally, by everybody's
it's a different world.
It's a different world. Everybody's talking to everybody like they've known each other for years,
and it's real.
Oh yeah.
It's people come up and people will come up to me during these events and they say, I have a problem with this, and I'm going, I just met you.
What's your name?
2 hours. I don't even I don't remember your name right now, and you just told me a big part of your life that you're going through. It's short that it happens.
Oh yeah,
it's a short period.
Remember this weekend? Remember it was Friday.
Yeah,
and it was, I think it was either right before lunch or right before one of the sessions. And I remember, I think it was you that I was standing next to. Remember, I'm like, check it out. Look at this is what makes me smile.
Yeah,
all the guys were having conversations with each other in different little groups, and rarely any of these guys knew each other. There was a couple that had friends, and they went together. But it was, and that's the power of God at work in the midst of men, is the realization is He's taking away that fear of you can't talk, you can't share, you can't ever, and he's just opening up this sense of unity that's just unbelievable.
Right. And it's spurred on from removing that technology.
Right. So how do you keep this going? One, you take the time away, you plan it out. Two, put your phone down, put your computer down, set times where you cannot answer it. Well, Mike, you don't understand, I'm an owner of a company. Okay. Or, your life is just so that important that you got to talk to your phone. Here's what I believe. If that's the case and you just literally have to be on it 24 hours a day, I believe part of faith is trusting God to take care of some of the problems that you think you have to be there for.
Right.
Because you're being obedient and shutting off and paying attention to Him. Because that's what we do this weekend. We get away. Why? To hear from Him. We shut our phones off. Why? To hear from Him. Right?
Right. Yeah.
That's the focus, right? That's the realities of heaven.
And I've heard some extremely successful people, and I mean, like, these successful of the successful, and now you hear talks with them, and they'll say, hey, I have to get away. I have to shut it off. Yeah. I have to, Thursdays at 5:00, I'm no longer working. Right. And these are guys that are running the companies that run the companies that we work for, right? Exactly. I mean, it's those guys that say the same stuff. So you're trying to tell me that my job, which again, my job is demanding. Like I have a lot of things that I juggle all at the same time, but it's not. Again, I take 4 days away, and it's not the end of the world. No. It's not, and that's 4 days. In our real life, you're not taking 4. We're talking about take half an hour. Right. Start with taking 15 minutes. Right. Once a week if you can, and shut everything off, and get yourself away. Go for a walk. Go out in the woods. Right. I mean, like you said, that kind of stuff. We're not talking about 4 days a week here.
No.
Like, take 15 minutes, half an hour, once a week, and shut it off.
Obviously, you want to take as much as you can.
Yeah.
But what you need. And this is where I really do believe that every time we take a step towards God, towards our real life, towards the heavenly, God's going to take care of the stuff down here for us. He's going to keep that one meeting that was supposed to happen 2 hours ago before you started the quiet time, and he's going to shift it. But he honors the steps that we take towards Him.
Right.
And we've got to trust that. We got to believe that. I mean, it's just true. Does that mean He's going to fix everything for you while you're gone? No. But the Bible says He goes up before us. He's at work on our behalf 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He's at work on our behalf. He's doing something. And so, yeah. So you want to keep it going after the weekend, get away, shut your technology off when you can, and then get into the moments just like what we did there, moments of talking with God, asking questions and listening.
Right.
Your car ride to work. Talk with God.
Mm-hmm.
Listen.
Right.
Yeah. Just listen. Shut everything off and listen. Anytime you get an opportunity to do that. Why? Because that is He's gonna download you the realities of heaven. That's what caused change in you during the weekend, was the reality of you stepped out of the world, stepped into a place where God shows up, and you need to find those spots and those moments consistently through your daily life. Instead of making it only 4 days, you make it every day. Somehow, some way, you apply it.
And think about how those sessions work, right? You have a session where again, you watch a video and they're teaching about a subject, right? So one of the sessions is about living an adventure, right? So they're teaching about adventure. They're telling stories about different kinds of adventure. They're giving you examples. They're breaking down different levels of adventure, and so you're basically learning what the definition is. Then you stop and you take a specific question about what you just learned to God, and you say, okay, how am I finding adventure in my life, God? Right. What adventure do you have for me in my life? Right? It's a specific question about something that you just learned about. And the answers that come out of that when you take a specific question and then it's half an hour, 45 minutes, every one of these sessions. It's not, this isn't 10 minutes of silence and asking God. No. Every one of these sessions is half an hour, 45 minutes of silence. Yeah. And again, you've got no technology. You're in the middle of nowhere. You don't know half of these people. You just met them. Right. And you're bringing in a specific question on a specific subject to God and then waiting for an answer. And just sitting there with nothing else to do.
And writing down what you hear.
And nowhere else to go.
Yes.
You literally, even if you wanted to be rushed, you can't because there's nothing else to do. Right. You have half an hour where no one is doing anything.
Right. And we're told not to talk to each other.
You can't talk to each other.
It's a mandatory quiet time.
Yeah.
It's a bit. And once again, so basically what we're saying, here's some easy steps.
Yeah.
Is basically you take what you did over the weekend that caused you to hear from the heavens and caused you to have focus and you apply it to your life.
It's not rocket science.
No.
People, this question of what do I do? What do I do when I leave here? Same thing you did when you were gone.
While you were here.
Not, right. Again, one of the things that John and his crew, I don't even think John says it, but I think, no, he does at one point, this isn't a gig.
No.
We don't play gigs.
No.
This is not some sort of grand, dramatic experience that we're putting on.
No.
This is literally how to live life, how you can live life. And if you do, the result is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it will change the things around you. I didn't know I was going to tell this story, but, one of the guys that is in our group, he said to me, he said, I just have to tell you this. He said, I went to that first basic up at Honey Rock, and I came back, and you invited me to come over here with a bunch of guys barbecuing that I didn't know, right? These are guys that you had done other events with. I didn't know them. And so it was really kind of awkward for me just to show up, hey guys, what's up? And it's a meeting of people that have done this kind of stuff together before. But the one person there I had known from before in life, and we ran into each other in the kitchen. And he said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And I just was like, "Here's how I'm doing. If you want to ask how I'm doing." And so I was real and open and raw kind of with him. And he says, he said, so I went back and I was talking to my wife and I said, "Hey, I ran into Denny Lemire." And she went, "Oh, Lemire's. Yeah, I remember those guys." And he was like, No, you don't remember him now. And she was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Yeah, he's different. I don't know what it is, but there's something different." He said, and that's what made me go, I need to go to one of these retreats.
Wow.
Because if he's like that from experiencing this, I need to know that.
Right.
That's the result of one, right? That's one example. Again, I'm not holding myself up as this grand, oh, look at me. But it's what happens when you put this into practice. Other people can see it.
Right.
Because it's different, but it's easy, really.
Well, there are definitely some easy steps. I mean,
right.
Definitely, like I say, if you're trying to maintain your change from a weekend, then do what you did during the weekend to experience the change. Apply it to your daily life. Mm-hmm. John, one of the last things, the simple things or the easy things that I consider is there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
That he presents to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact, maybe the one guy that did the whole whiteboard, maybe God answered every single question. But the point is don't put the material away in the closet and wait for the next event that you can go to.
Yeah, because this is not jump from event to event, right?
And that's what tendency is happening is the fact of that you go to an event, you get change, you get these new things, you God's in your life, and then you go back to the real world, and you have to barely make it, get everything stolen from you so you can go to becoming a king, and then you become, your life is event based, and that's the last thing you want, and so how can you carry enough momentum between events? I mean, I'd love you to go to every event every time, but how do you carry the momentum from one event to another event? So it's not just you going there receiving, but it's sowing into others what God did away from the event. Well, God really did this in my life between me and my wife. Man, when I got back and I applied this thing that John said on the video, and oh my gosh, me and my wife's life has been changed. That's what we need to start getting to. Right? Because we need to start becoming the leaders that God's called us to be, not the followers that obviously Jesus had leaders and he had followers, right? And so, that's what we want to see, is how many testimonies we can bring to the next event.
And even the questions, that you can take it deeper. You might have, again, I've gone, we both gone to multiple ones of these, and there's times when I still look at these questions and I get totally different answers because I'm now in a different place. It's a process, and you're working through the process of living life. And so you uncover some things and you deal with some stuff, and you kind of start to work through the process, and then different things come up that, now I need to address this, or man, I've never even seen this in my life before because I've never looked at life this way.
Well, I mean, just a quick example is, from me, the first basic I went to, the thing that really screamed out when I discovered all the agreements that I was coming into is that I was abandoned. That a lot of my life, it came to the root of being abandonment. All these different situations were just kind of abandonment. Rocked my world. I grieved, I cried. And then I felt a sense of peace and life and love that, I understand what that was, but that doesn't have to be anymore. And then they are talking the exact same thing, asking the same question, which was, this question of basically, what was the message your father gave you? Totally was absolutely the opposite. Not the opposite. It wasn't like but it was a whole different scenario. And I'll just say what it was. It was that he had no message.
Right. Silence.
That when I think about the times, growing up, there wasn't really a specific message. It was just kind of, he was my dad, which is a good thing, because I think he was a great dad and is a wonderful father. But when it came to him kind of guiding my life through a message, whether it be to you're successful or there just never was one. So now what do I do with that? Right. So I've already been seeking after God since we've been back. We've been back for 4 or 5 days now. I've been going back to that question, taking time away to listen. All the things that we're saying here, what happens to you on the weekend and what you have to do to get the stuff that God has, now apply it to your real life. Because that's what you're bringing. You're bringing your real life to the place that you live. You're bringing the change that's going to make change. And then, I still think you have to take it on as a challenge.
Yeah.
You still got to say you're not going to let the world take it away from you. You're not going to let the enemy pull you back into those same positions.
You have to guard that. You have to actually take action.
Yes.
And that action you take is to grab onto that and say, no, I know what I heard. I know what I saw. I know
who I am.
I know who I am. Yeah. And I'm going to take that back.
Right.
I'm going to grab onto that and be that in my life, no matter what the world is doing around me. That doesn't change who I am.
Right. That's exactly, and that's the battle.
Right.
That's the war. That's why we're doing what we're doing. That's why we're becoming the men that God calls us to be. That the world doesn't dictate who we are. We bring who we are to the world.
Right.
And that's a battle. And we're born into a world at war. John's very clear about that. And he says it on his, if I were you, he always says it twice.
Yeah.
I'd take this seriously.
Right.
And I think that's a huge statement.
For sure.
Take it seriously. Not only are you taking that we're at war, but take it seriously, the changes that God did in you on the weekend.
Right.
Take it seriously. Right? Because you take it seriously, you're not going to let anybody change your heart. You're not going to let anybody step in and say, well, that one, my boss, he right away just started manipulating me and doing the things that he always does. Okay, well, that doesn't change what God did to you. He's not that powerful.
Right.
Take it seriously. That the change is real. And now you're starting to see your real life, which is hidden in Christ. And to me, like I say, it just makes me smile, because just that thought process of there's more to me than I know, and I know where to find it.
Right.
Why would I not look? Why would I not look for it?
Yeah, it does. it also spurs you to realize that, when you start to it spurs you to realize of how much you're missing, how many things that you didn't think of. That's the part that gets me is when I go to these is, man, I never thought about that.
Right.
I never thought about that way. I did that, but I didn't realize I was doing that. Right? They say something and you go, oh man, crap. I guess I did do that. I do that. I do say that. You watch yourself and you realize, holy, I didn't even know half the time the things that were, just getting rid of your cell phone. You realize, holy crap, I didn't realize how dependent I was on this thing.
Oh my gosh.
The funny thing is watching guys have conversations too, where they're like, what was that movie that, it was, and we were sitting around the cabin the one night having the conversation late. I don't know if you were there, but we were, everybody was naming off movies. You were there, naming off movies, right? And it's funny because guys were, that one movie with, Mel Gibson and this person, and you're like, it wasn't that. And then they would say like a line from the movie, and somebody would, it was this, and everybody, everybody would be picking up their phone Googling.
Oh yeah.
If
we had phones.
If we had phones. The fact that you don't, it was so fun to sit and have that conversation. Yeah. I mean, and it went on for
a while,
silly amount of time. I mean, was a long conversation.
Well, Dr. Greg Burgond, who does the Compass, does the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 Heart of a Warrior. He's had multiple men that have come up to him after each one of the classes and said, I'm really unhappy with you. And Dr. B's like, why? He goes, because you made me think.
Right.
He goes, that's exactly why I do what I do. I'm causing you to think again. Because we don't anymore. The answers are out there. We just find them. We don't have to process. We don't have to use our brain. And that's why Greg puts those things on the way he does, is because it forces you to think.
Here's the scariest part for me is not just the answers are out there, but the answer that you want to find is out there.
Oh, yeah.
Truth or not, reality or not, real or not, right? The answer that you want to find is out there, which is almost scary. Is quite scary. You're not seeking, when you go to find the answer in the technology and the places where we typically are finding answers now, you're not going to find an answer. You're going to find the answer you want. If you don't see it, you just scroll until you do, and you're like, oh, look, common cold actually doesn't exist. I found it. It's on page 6. And I don't know who this guy is, but
it's a
25-minute video that says the common cold doesn't exist, right? So
and what's even,
I knew I was right.
And then you could take that from God's side,
right?
And you could say God's got the answer and is trying to find you.
Okay. That's interesting, a way to think about that too.
And we can bring that back to the hide and seek.
Right.
I want my kid to find me. So if he's not finding me, what do I do?
Yeah. Are you out there?
You make a little noise, you bump the wall, right?
Stick it.
Totally God. He can't wait to give you the answer that you really need. Not what you're looking for, but the answer you really need. And I think that's so cool about God. Right? And that's where the scripture in Colossians even says further, and when Christ, and I love this, who is your life.
Right.
I mean, how cool is that Christ is my life. My life is wrapped up in him and he in me. And that reality that God wants to give us. He doesn't want to beat us over the head. He wants us to have the information we need. All those things. We think it's God holding out on us, but he's not. He's chasing us more than we're chasing him.